My name is Chris Walker. I'm 34 years old, and I live in a quiet little suburb called Hanley Downs, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I've worked in sales for the past 11 years, and for the last 6 of those years, I worked my way up at a company called Telbridge Solutions, a tech firm that sells communication software to big companies in the US and Canada. When I first joined Telbridge, I started as a junior rep. I took all the junk leads that no one else wanted. I worked 60-hour weeks. I smiled even when clients screamed at me. And slowly, one contract at a time, I climbed the ladder. By year 4, I was one of the top reps. By year 5, I was managing some of the biggest clients in our portfolio. But there was one thing that never sat right with me. My boss, Greg. Greg was the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and pointed at graphs during meetings just to look smart. He'd never closed a single deal in his life. He loved taking credit for other people's work and had this fake, toothy grin that made your skin crawl. I always kept my head down and let my numbers speak for themselves. That is, until everything changed. 3 months ago, I landed a meeting with a massive Canadian logistics firm called Northfleet Corp. They were planning a total overhaul of their internal communication systems across all branches from Nova Scotia to British Columbia. It was the biggest opportunity in the company's history, and I knew it. We were talking $25 million. I worked day and night preparing the proposal. I studied their systems. I even hired a private consultant with my own money to make sure our pitch was airtight. After 6 weeks of back and forth, conference calls, and visits to Toronto, we finally got it. Northfleet signed a 3-year deal worth $25 million, the largest contract in Telbridge's history. The office exploded with celebration. Greg called an all-hands meeting just to brag about how we secured the contract. I was too tired to care, but deep down, I expected something in return: a promotion, a raise, at least a thank you. I got none of those. Instead, 2 weeks later, on a rainy Thursday morning, I got called into HR. Due to internal restructuring, your position has been made redundant, the lady from HR said, not even making eye contact. I blinkte. Wait, what? Greg was standing in the corner of the room with his arms folded, looking smug. We appreciate all you've done, Chris. This is not personal, he said. Not personal? I made that deal happen. I put in the hours. I brought in $25 million. And they fired me? No explanation. No offer to move me to another role. Just a severance check and a smile. What they didn't know was that I had built something on the side. You see, while I was working at Telbridge, I noticed how bad most companies were at handling internal systems, especially remote teams. Everyone was trying to modernize but didn't know how. So 2 years ago, I started building a small platform called EchoLink with a couple of freelance developers. We worked nights and weekends. It was clunky at first, but slowly, it became something special. I never pitched it to Telbridge because I knew what they'd do. They'd steal it. So when I was fired, I didn't fight it. I walked out of that glass building with my little box of desk stuff, my EchoLink prototype on a USB drive, and something stronger than anger. I walked out with purpose. The first few days were hard. I had a wife, a 7-year-old son, and a mortgage. My severance package barely covered 2 months of bills. I thought about going back to corporate life. I even applied to some jobs, but none of them felt right. Then something weird happened. I got a call from Northfleet. They weren't happy. Apparently, after I left, Telbridge assigned some clueless junior rep to their account. Bugs weren't getting fixed. Emails went unanswered. Deadlines slipped. The rep didn't even know how half the system worked. Northfleet was furious. I told them I was no longer with the company. Their CTO, a sharp guy named Ethan, asked, "So where are you now?" I hesitated. Then, I told him about EchoLink. I gave him a demo over Zoom. He sat back, nodded slowly, then said something I'll never forget. "This is 10 times better than what we bought from Telbridge." I didn't know what to say. "Can you scale it for 30 offices?" "Yes." I lied. "Okay, send us a proposal." I hung up the call, stared at my screen, and burst out laughing. I wasn't ready. Echolink was barely running on 3 servers in Iceland. But this was my shot. I called my developers, pulled some favors, maxed out my credit card, and got to work. For the next 6 weeks, I barely slept. My wife brought me meals. My kid peeked into my home office to say goodnight. I worked through weekends. I coded. I negotiated cloud contracts. I fixed bugs at 3 a.m. I chased down UI designers in different time zones. I lived and breathed Echolink. And then we launched it for North Fleet. The switch happened on a Friday night. We migrated their entire system over the weekend. And by Monday morning, it was live. And it worked. Not just worked. It flew. North Fleet's operations team emailed us saying it was the smoothest rollout they'd ever seen. Their COO called me personally and said, "We're in this with you for the long run." A week later, they signed a 5-year deal with Echolink worth $30 million. Word spread like wildfire. Other logistics companies reached out, then some banks, then a university group from the UK. Within 2 months, we had 5 more clients and a growing waitlist, and still, no one at Telbridge knew. Greg was busy putting out fires at North Fleet, trying to stop them from backing out of their original contract. He had no idea that the system replacing theirs was mine, but I wasn't done yet. One of the junior analysts from Telbridge reached out to me privately. She had heard rumors. She wanted to join Echolink. I hired her. Then another one came, and another. Soon, 5 ex-Telbridge staff were working for me. We were still under the radar, but I knew it wouldn't last forever. Then one morning, I woke up to an email with the subject line, "Urgent. Legal notice from Telbridge Solutions." I opened it. It was a cease and desist. They accused me of stealing company secrets, poaching clients, and using insider knowledge. I smiled. They had no idea what they had just started. They wanted a war. They were going to get one. And I was going to make sure they remembered it for the rest of their lives. The legal notice sat in my inbox like a ticking bomb. It was filled with angry legal terms, half-baked accusations, and threats of a lawsuit if I didn't immediately cease all business activity with former Telbridge clients. I read it twice, leaned back in my chair, and laughed. They were scared. Greg was scared. Good. But I wasn't going to make a dumb move. Revenge without strategy is just chaos. And chaos burns everyone, even the person lighting the fire. I needed to play this smart. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Donna, a no-nonsense woman from New Jersey who used to tear apart corporate lawsuits for breakfast. She called me 10 minutes later, her voice calm but razor-sharp. "This is weak. They're phishing. You didn't use any Telbridge software. You built Echolink from scratch. And as for the clients, North Fleet came to you. So what do we do?" We respond with facts, confidence, and a smile. And we did. The reply we sent was firm, polite, and backed by every document we had, timelines, code versions, proof of independent development, even NDAs, showing I had protected Echolink from the start. Donna's email ended with, "Any further harassment will be met with a countersuit for defamation and loss of business." We heard nothing back for 2 weeks. But the silence only made things busier on our end. Echolink was exploding. A logistics company in Halifax signed a $12 million contract. A university group in London inked a 5-year deal. We had inquiries from New York, Vancouver, and even a bank in Birmingham, UK. I hired a full-time operations manager, then a sales director. We moved out of my home office and into a small office park near the river Cheap. Quiet, but ours. I stood in the empty space one afternoon, looking out at the cars going by, and smiled. This was real now, and I was just getting started. But then, something happened. One of my new hires, Claire, the analyst who had jumped ship from Telbridge, walked into my office one morning with a pale face and a USB drive in her hand. "You need to see this," she said. She plugged the USB into my laptop. A folder popped up. Inside were screenshots, internal Telbridge emails, and a confidential document titled Echo Link Strategy Plan. "What is this?" I asked, already feeling my stomach twist. "They're trying to clone Echo Link," she said. "Greg put together a team last month. They're using what they think they know about your system and trying to build a cheaper version." I clicked through the files. The documents were sloppy. Half the tech didn't even make sense. It was like watching someone copy a painting from across the street with fogged-up glasses. But one thing stood out: an internal timeline showing they planned to pitch the clone to North Fleet in 90 days. My blood boiled. They fired me. They tried to ruin me. And now they were trying to steal from me. But here's the thing about trying to copy something from the outside: it only works if you understand the heart of it. Echo Link wasn't just code. It was relationships. It was late-night calls with CTOs. It was customized modules and human support. It was trust. Still, I couldn't let this stand. I called Ethan from North Fleet. I didn't tell him about the clone. I didn't need to. I just asked how everything was going. "Honestly, it's been night and day since we switched. My team's begging me to find a way out of our Telbridge contract completely." That's when I saw the opening. Telbridge had a clause in their North Fleet contract. It guaranteed a certain response time for technical issues, 4 hours. I knew, because I helped draft it. And I also knew they weren't meeting that anymore. So I asked Ethan, "Have you logged the recent delays?" "Of course. Can you send me those logs?" He did. 23 incidents over the last month alone. I forwarded them to Donna. Her reply came back fast. "This is breach of contract. North Fleet can walk if they want to, and Telbridge can't do a thing about it." The next day, I got a call from Greg. I'll never forget the sound of his voice. "Chris, buddy, I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot." I nearly dropped the phone laughing. "Off on the wrong foot? You fired me after I brought in the biggest deal in company history." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I think there's room for us to collaborate. Maybe we work out a joint venture. Echo Link and Telbridge stronger together, right?" My hand gripped the phone tighter. "I already have what I need, Greg. Clients, team, tech. What exactly are you offering me?" A long pause. "Let's not turn this into something ugly." "Oh, it's already ugly. You made it that way. I'm just making sure everyone sees it clearly." I hung up. That night, I had dinner with my wife and son. We went out to a diner down the street, nothing fancy, just burgers and milkshakes. My son told me about a drawing he made at school of Daddy's new office, and I nearly cried at the table. The lows were getting lower. I was tired. I was worried. I knew Greg wouldn't give up that easily. People like him don't take losses. They get bitter, desperate. And I was right, because 2 weeks later, Telbridge made their move. They didn't just try to clone Echo Link. They launched it, and they named it Echo Pro. No shame, no creativity, just stolen dreams wrapped in a knockoff label. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came the next morning when one of my developers burst into the office, her laptop in hand, eyes wide. "They're claiming you stole their code," she said. "What?" "They posted an announcement online saying Echo Link is based on proprietary Telbridge software. They're telling people not to trust you." My mouth clenched. This wasn't just a lie. This was war. And this time, I wasn't going to play defense. The announcement hit the industry like a slap to the face. Telbridge launches Echo Pro, a revolutionary internal communications platform built on proprietary tech. Below that, in bold, "We caution all current and potential clients against unverified imitations, including Echo Link, which may include intellectual property developed at Telbridge Solutions." They didn't just launch a clone, they launched a smear campaign. Overnight, I went from the guy who beat the system to a so-called thief trying to make a quick buck. Online forums lit up with speculation. Some of my new clients emailed me, asking for reassurance. A few deals paused mid-negotiation. Even Ethan from North Fleet called me sounding nervous. "Chris, I trust you, but our legal team is asking questions. This could get messy." It was exactly what Greg wanted to rattle the cage, stir doubt, and force me into a corner. But I wasn't scared. I was done being scared. I told Ethan, "Give me 3 days. I'll give you everything you need." I got to work. First, I gathered every document that proved Echolink's independence code commits dated back 2 years, domain registrations, signed development contracts, and emails showing my private consultant's involvement before Telbridge ever heard of North Fleet. Every update, every feature, every design mock-up, I had it all, time-stamped and airtight. Next, I called in Donna again. She drafted a full cease and desist against Telbridge and filed a defamation suit that same week. But we weren't just playing legal ping-pong now. I wanted the world to see what Telbridge had done, so I went public. I wrote a detailed blog post titled, "I built Echolink. Telbridge fired me. Now they're trying to steal it." I broke down the entire story, how I created Echolink on my own time, how I landed North Fleet, how I was fired days after closing the biggest contract in the company's history. I even included a timeline and proof of my independent development. No insults, no drama, just facts. And then I hit post. Within hours, it went viral on LinkedIn. Tech forums picked it up. A few reporters messaged me. People started commenting in wavesome, angry, some shocked, others sharing their own horror stories of greedy bosses and stolen ideas. Then something amazing happened. People began choosing side sand. Most of them picked mine. North Fleet's legal team reviewed the blog and my documentation. 2 days later, they officially terminated their contract with Telbridge, citing breach of agreement and loss of trust. Echolink's new deal with them doubled in value to cover expanded services. But I wasn't done. Remember that cheap knockoff, Echo Pro? Claire, the ex-Telbridge analyst who joined my team, dug into their system out of curiosity. She didn't hack anything, just poked around their public documentation and onboarding demos. And what she found, they didn't build Echo Pro. They bought it from a low-tier overseas developer who had copied our original site design almost pixel for pixel. Their tech team hadn't even written the code, they just slapped their brand on it. Claire passed me the name of the developer, so I reached out, acting like a potential client. The guy, thrilled at the idea of new business, gave me everything: project specs, design blueprints, code-based previews. He even admitted on a call that Telbridge asked him to make something that looks like this, while linking to my old demo page. I recorded the call. With his permission, Donna nearly did a backflip. "That's your silver bullet." We filed a formal complaint with the U.S. Copyright Office and launched an investigation into software theft and brand impersonation. Once the paperwork was in, we made our move. I posted the recorded call online, right under the original blog post. Then I shared a video side by side comparing Echolink and Echo Pro. The caption? "When you copy the homework but forget to change the answers." The internet exploded. Echo Pro became a meme overnight. People roasted it online, mocking Telbridge's fake innovation. Tech influencers started dragging Greg by name. By the next morning, Telbridge's official site crashed from the traffic. I was drinking coffee on my office balcony when my phone rang. It was Greg. He didn't sound smug this time. "Chris, look, we can work this out. There's no need to drag this through the mud." "Oh, it's not me dragging it, Greg. You jumped in head first." "I'll admit we made mistakes, all right. But let's settle this. Quietly. Name your price." I laughed. "This was never about money, Greg. It's about respect. Something you never gave anyone." A long silence. Then, bitterly, he said, "You'll regret this." "No, Greg. I think you will." I hung up. Later that month, Telbridge's board forced Greg to step down. Their stock plummeted. Clients fled. EchoPro was pulled off the market. Meanwhile, EchoLink was booming. We were hiring fast. Offices opened in Toronto and London. Our client waitlist? 6 months long. I started getting invites to speak at tech conferences. People wanted to hear the story not just of the betrayal, but of the bounce back, the revenge. Because that's what this was. Not loud, not violent, just smart, precise, satisfying. Greg thought firing me would bury me. He didn't know I was a seed. And when I grew, I made sure the sun never shined on him again. The lesson? Be kind, be fair, lift others up. Because the people you step on to get ahead might just be the ones who build the road you'll have to crawl back down.